All right, so here's something interesting. So CNN did this little interview sort of panel thing that they have where they have on 6 Trump voters who are now in opposition to Donald Trump. This is of course because the midterms are coming up, by the way. I know a bunch of deadlines are finished, but I think California still has its deadline later. So if you're not registered to vote, you should register to vote and go out and vote. It's really important. It's going to be obviously the voting's on November 6th. So this is the reason why they did this. And it is going to be essentially a group of Trump voters expressing their regret for voting for Donald Trump, and a lot of it seeming to be quite genuine and sort of sincere and authentic actual regret. But I want to talk about this because there are some nuances that I want to add to this.
Okay, we are now 21 days from the midterm elections. I recently sat down with the all-important independent voters. 5 of the people you're about to meet voted for Donald Trump, but all of them are now very disappointed. So much so, every one of them is changing their party affiliation as a result of Donald Trump. And all of them want to send a message with their midterm vote. Here is part 2 of our Pulse of the People. How many of you consider the midterm vote very important? How many of you consider this a protest vote? Dale, I'll start with you.
I've been a lifelong Republican since the day I turned 18. For the first time in my life, I'm going to vote a straight Democratic ticket in midterms. Is if they're connected to Donald Trump, they are not connected to me.
So you now are no longer a Republican?
I am not, no. I changed my registration to independent.
Because of Donald Trump?
Because of Donald Trump. It was no longer the party that I joined. It's morphed into something that's almost unrecognizable.
Stephanie, what are you wrestling with?
I feel like I'm kind of without a party.
You were a lifelong Republican.
Right.
If somebody had told you, say 15 years ago, that you are preparing to vote a straight up and down Democratic ticket in the midterms, you would have said what to them?
Oh, it's crazy.
Yeah. So why are you now doing it?
To see Republicans not stand up to him, and the ones that do are just quitting, just walking away. It's like someone in the party needs to challenge them or challenge him or find someone better, find some better options.
Nancy, how do you feel about it?
I just think there's no values left anymore. There should be values. We have no values. He doesn't have any values. I thought he had values.
What made you think that he had values when you voted for him?
He was talking about bringing America back, and I'm thinking, oh, these are values. I thought he was more in the middle and not Republican, not to the right, and I thought the left was too far left. I wanted someone in the middle, so I thought it was going to change. No, it got worse.
Let's just make sure that we have the house as we wanted, right? So this way, at least no major damage will be done, right? That's the short term. And I think the long term is, I think we need to come up with some solutions. I mean, let's work together.
How many of you want Democrats to take the House?
Yeah.
And
we
Senate?
pray that the Senate will go too. For God's sake, they have to put an end to this mess.
Anthony, we interviewed you 11 months ago. Back then, you were on the fence about President Trump.
Try to be fair. We were at the first quarter of the game. I would always support the president, especially at the early part of the game.
And not to pour salt in a wound, but just to remind you of what you told us back then. Watch this.
We do not have a puppet in the White House anymore.
That makes your life better.
That gives me hope.
How do you feel today?
We've got a very crazy man driving the train, and he's going to kill this country.
And Anthony, are you voting a straight up and down Democratic ticket in the midterm?
Not only there, I am actually for the very first time contributing across the board, across the country. And I've never, ever written a check or spent any money on anything political because I'm afraid. I'm afraid.
You've never given a political contribution. You've never given a nickel for a political contribution, and now you're starting to open your checkbook.
Yeah, it's a fear.
Mm-hmm. I just want to say to every American that's having trouble with this, I am sorry I voted for him. I regret it with all my heart. I feel like I've enabled this monster to destroy democracy, destroy everything that is good in this country.
You've been an independent for a long time, but now what?
No, I'm definitely voting Democrat. I've been knocking on doors. I got a clipboard.
You're even canvassing.
I am
for Democrats.
canvassing for a Democrat
That's
in
how
Wyoming.
strongly you feel.
I believe hardly anything the president says, but I do believe he's a danger to this country and to our democracy, and I'm going to fight every day. I'm going to fight every day.
I will say it's interesting because people will watch these segments and say, well, how independent were they really at the beginning? Anthony, we had on TV
A year ago.
a year ago, and he not just wanted to cut the president some slack, but thought the president was out there doing the job for him, and he's changed completely.
He has changed. And so, again, some of these people were lifelong Republicans. They're changing to independent as a result of them. Some of them have been always independent or swing voters, and they're changing to Democrats. I mean, that's how strongly they feel about what they've seen over the past 2 years, and they do feel like the midterms are the most important of their lives.
It seems more of a personality thing than a policy thing to me.
Oh, it's about character. I mean, they talked about that. So some of them even agree with some of the policy issues the president has put forward, but they have all, to a person, told me that it's a character issue that is now giving them so much dismay.
Fascinating. Great to have that. Thanks so much.
So now there are a few things that I want to say about this. Now, what I want to say is that one thing that you never want to ever fall for is the idea that any election is a basket in, is a shoe in. Make sure you go out to vote. But anyways, aside from that, here's the thing. So these people are independent voters. So they're not like, I think one or maybe a couple of them, as she explained there, was like actually really like a Trump supporter. But what I'm trying to get at here is these people, despite them explaining that they're now anti-Trump and they're going to be voting Democrat, what I want to say is that at least the woman who said that she thought the left was too far left and she thought that Donald Trump was going to be in the middle. Where on planet Earth did you get the idea that Donald Trump was going to be anywhere near the middle? What of all of his massively divisive and insane rhetoric and statements did you conclude that he was actually going to be in the middle? Not really right, but in the middle. And where did you get that? How could you possibly make the statement that Hillary Clinton, this is objectively speaking, by the way, this is not anything that is through a bias. This is looking at the political spectrum. In what planet, in what universe is Hillary Rodham Clinton far left? She is the antithesis of far left. She is the, Obamacare, we want to keep it in place. Even far left, if you're talking about a complete spectrum of politics, is Noam Chomsky, anarcho-syndicalism. But let's say in the context of the United States, right? Let's say you're talking about sort of like the Overton window. I guess you would put Bernie Sanders at the end of that spectrum, but that's really only if you are just having that specific window. But anyways, the point here being the idea that Hillary Clinton was too far left. How could you possibly think that? So what I'm trying to say is, I don't know if that's indicative of all of them, but definitely that woman had no clue what the hell she was thinking. She didn't know basic understanding of politics whatsoever. And so she's going to be flipping her vote. But the thing is that what I think that is being portrayed here is that there's this idea that there are a bunch of Trump voters who have flipped. There are not a bunch of Trump voters who flipped. I think these people are, first of all, they're independent voters. So I think that a majority of people who voted for Donald Trump, I think they are not backing away from their support for Donald Trump, because I remember reading an article about a farmer who was being hit hard by the tariffs that were put in place by Donald Trump, but he made the statement that despite that, he's going to continue his support for Donald Trump. So in other words, despite the fact that, it's Trump destroying his work, his occupation, right, his livelihood potentially, he's still going to continue to support. That's basically a cultish ideology where you have this ideological commitment to supporting someone. And the crazy thing about the Trump presidency, if you want to analyze it, is that there's nothing that'll take him down. Nothing that will take him down. Think about all of the crazy crap that came out against him. He literally admitted to sexual assault on camera, and it still didn't take him down. The thing is there's nothing that will take Trump down. Nothing. The only thing that can defeat Donald Trump is a Bernie Sanders run. Maybe the run by some others, but I can't think of who else would really be able to win for sure. Biden, there are a bunch of videos of him being a creeper, and so I think that Trump would probably take him down with that, because people would look at those videos and be like, what in the actual, hell is going on? But what I'm trying to get at here is these people are more about the sort of Donald Trump is a douche and he's not exhibiting the dignity and the respect that's supposed to come with the office of the presidency of the United States. And so that's why they're opposed to him. They didn't really express any opposition in terms of policy positions. So these people, aside from really that one guy who said he was a Trump supporter, and I guess he was a proponent, like a heavy proponent of Trump, it seems to be the case that these people are not 100%, they're not representative of Trump supporters, is what I'm trying to get at here. So despite these people, having a half sobering, I'm going to say half sobering, because obviously Trump's demeanor and the way that he carries himself is disgusting, and the statements that he makes are disgusting. But I would have much rather been really impressed if they came on and said, I voted for Donald Trump because he said that he was going to drain the swamp, and then he proceeded to fill his administration with Goldman Sachs. If they had said that he promised to bring jobs back to the United States, but instead there are record numbers of jobs being shipped overseas. If they would have came on and said that, in addition to, wow, Donald Trump is a piece of garbage, which another thing I want to add is, how could the character thing be the breaker at this point? Because it's like, he was horrible during the presidential election. So what made you change your mind anyway? It's really weird. So the nuance I wanted to add to this is that despite these Trump voters do not believe that the majority of Trump voters are backing away from Donald Trump, because that's simply not the case. Donald Trump supporters, they're essentially ideologically committed, and it's this sort of basically borderline, I'm going to say, it's pretty much cultish behavior.